How's it going, folks? So today's video is going to be a little bit different because today I want to talk about the resale industry more broadly and specifically about misconceptions and pitfalls that aspiring and beginning resellers might be likely to fall into. And I do hope that there will be some nuggets even for experienced resellers in this video, but keep in mind, I am far from an expert. I am not a veteran in this industry. I've been doing it for 3 years, 1 year of part-time and 2 years of full-time, but I've been so involved in the community that I think I've seen a good amount of what can lead people to burnout or losing money, or in the worst cases, even quitting. So in this video, I want to tell beginners and people who are thinking about starting reselling what those things might be and hopefully set the record straight on how to avoid them. So hopping right into it, misconception number one is that reselling is passive income. I have heard this phrase in my DMs too many times for me to even recount, and it could not be farther from the truth. Passive income is a form of making money that doesn't require actively working for it. Reselling is the opposite of that. It's gaining extra income through working more. It's a business that you are building up by yourself from scratch, oftentimes during your nights and weekends. And so if you're looking for something passive, I'd recommend just putting more money into your 401k or your IRA. Those are really the best ways I know of to make more money without actually having to do anything. Just let that interest, that growth compound over time. If you're looking for passive income, reselling is not it. Misconception number two. This is particularly important for people like us who watch a lot of reselling content on YouTube or on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you like to consume it. And this is the myth that what works for them will also work for me. The truth is, when you see some other creator's business model working really well for them, there could be factors that you're not considering that would make it more difficult for you to adopt yourself. And I'm certainly not saying that you should not try, but so for example, I have people reach out to me all the time that say, Caleb, it seems like you have a lot of pawn shops in your areas and that's just kind of like a norm for that part of the country. Some parts of the country, and especially other parts of the world, pawn shops aren't necessarily even a thing. So if someone, for example, in a really rural area was looking to do what I do, they would have a much harder time of it. Now, the flip side of this, the antidote, if you will, is having a mindset where you are constantly experimenting. Don't just say like, oh, this one thing that this reseller YouTuber did isn't working for me, therefore reselling isn't all it's cracked up to be. You have to say, like, imagine you're looking to get into flipping clothing and you see your favorite reseller out there finding a bunch of athleisure stuff because they live in a high income area and they're picking up like Athleta and Lululemon stuff all the time and you're not finding any of it. Well, maybe if you're in a more rural area, you're passing up on like high-end workwear brands like Duluth or Carhartt all the time that you could be making money on, but you just have to get creative. And here's another thing, you have to be curious, especially when you are starting out in this business. You need to be willing to go out there and invest a ton of time just to teach yourself what kinds of stuff in your area might be underpriced and where some opportunities might be that others are passing up on. For example, maybe your family's in the restaurant business and you've got a bunch of connections naturally with other people who own restaurants, and they've got a whole bunch of excess restaurant tools and fixtures and mixers and who knows what all goes into it that they upgrade every maybe 5 or 10 years, and their old ones are still worth money, but they just don't have the time or energy to go list it. These are the kinds of opportunities that you have to learn to always be looking for and thinking of, especially when you're trying to implement the same strategies as your favorite creators and they may not necessarily be working for you. I'll give you 2 methods of sourcing from my personal journey that I just thought up like this that have ended up making me a lot of money. The first one is early on when I started reselling. I was flipping mostly books on Amazon. And I decided, okay, all these thrift stores, I'm seeing people on YouTube go out to thrift stores and get really good hauls. I think there is either too much competition in my area or my Goodwills are selling their books themselves because I'm just not finding any. So I decided to try a completely new strategy, which was sending emails to the like secretary or facilities management departments of a ton of churches in my area saying, hey, I'm a small business owner. Do you guys have any books that you were going to either throw away or donate anyway that you would be willing to have me just come and pick up for you and use for my small business? It was through that unorthodox method of sourcing that I was connected with a gentleman from one church who was looking to get rid of an entire library of seminary textbooks that he had been using that other companies, such as Goodwill, other charities, they weren't even willing to come pick up from his house. So he was just thrilled to have them gone. He actually offered to pay me to haul them out of there for him. But I was like, no, I'm gonna use these to sell online, and I really appreciate the free inventory. And those books ended up selling for like $4,000+. The other example is back in the spring. You guys can actually see videos of this. I invented this concept of trading Nintendo Switches on Facebook Marketplace. I would buy a Switch, which at the time were in really high demand, post it on Facebook Marketplace and say, hey, I will trade you for a video game collection, and pick the ones that were much higher value when I pieced them out than the Switches themselves. Both of those methods of sourcing were not something that I had seen anybody else do previously. They just came up out of somewhere in my old noggin, but they have made me a lot of money since then. So I would highly encourage you to be creative in your sourcing methods when other methods from other people aren't working out for you. Now, before I get to number 3, I should let you guys know who this guy is in the corner. Oh, you didn't notice him? That's Al. He's been here the whole time. That's kind of weird. You never even saw him. Now, my buddy Al, the YouTube algorithm, is basically my boss. He is the piper that I have to pay with all of these videos, and unfortunately, he's kind of moody. But the way to put him in the best mood to treat me well is if you guys can click the like and subscribe buttons on this video. That essentially tells my boss that I'm doing a good job and that he should give me a pat on the back by promoting my videos. So if you guys could do that on this one, I really appreciate it. To be honest, instructional videos like this don't perform all that well, but I still really like doing them because part of the point of this channel is just to share my knowledge with other resellers and hopefully help you guys avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. Okay, number 3 misconception is that profit is profit. Now, I have to explain this one a little bit because this phrase will often come up when people see a relatively low dollar item. Maybe it's like something that they're paying $1 for. They're gonna list it for 10 on eBay with free shipping and maybe make a couple bucks. Profit is profit. And this is a big misconception because you should always be striving as a reseller to flip higher dollar items that not only earn you more money per item, but more money per minute that you are putting into processing those items. Now, I should be clear here. When you are just starting out, it is totally okay to list a good amount of low dollar stuff, especially if you already have it just lying around your house, to get some experience under your belt and get a feel for the platforms that you're dealing with, build up some feedback. There are all kinds of values to listing anything and everything well, not everything, but even relatively low profit dollar items early on in your journey. But selling items for $10 on eBay is not a place that you should want to continue to be in for your whole journey. The reason being, once you do have a little bit more cash flow and more experience, you need to be looking for those higher dollar flips, because if you only do low dollar stuff, your time invested per $3 or $4 profit flip is just not going to give you the results that you need to grow in the long term. And one big thing that can cause burnout and frustration in resellers is, okay, I'm seeing my sales gradually go up week after week. I'm getting 5 sales, 10 sales, 15 sales, but the needle in my bank account isn't really moving all that much. I'm putting all this extra work in, and I don't feel like I'm really seeing the results financially. This is why I always stress that as your budget is expanding, you need to be looking for higher dollar profit niches that you can earn a higher dollar amount per item that you are flipping. I'm at the point right now where I regularly will buy, for example, 3DSs. If I can get them for $100 and sell them for $150 net after fees and everything, I will do that almost all the time because I know it's going to take me only about 10 minutes of work, and those things are going to absolutely fly off the shelf. So I love doing those flips. They don't take me almost any work to test or to clean, and I'm able to do that because I've been really financially conservative and good about saving my money, and what I do spend, I'm reinvesting into my business along the course of my reseller career. Number 4 pitfall is I'm pretty good to just kind of do this on my own. Reselling is a business that is inherently very insular and oftentimes kind of lonely. If you're like me, most of the time you're going to be sourcing by yourself and listing by yourself and shipping by yourself. And one of the reasons that I was so drawn to YouTube was it was a comfort knowing that there are people out there that are doing the same thing as me. But to me, there's a big difference between having that kind of parasocial relationship with a creator who doesn't actually know you and building real connections within the industry. To be able to have real, physical people that you are, even if you're not in person, you're reaching out to, you can ask questions, you can vent about frustrations, you can get advice on business moves that you're considering making. It makes all the difference. So I would recommend as early on as is feasibly possible for your business, go to reseller conferences. Start meeting people, start exchanging information, get into group me's or text threads or whatever you can to make real connections with people who are doing the same thing as you. And the other thing you can do is just find a good community of people online. This can be through a Facebook group, or if you're a video game seller, this is the reason that I created the video game reseller Discord. It's just super helpful, especially early on, to be able to bounce ideas off of people who actually know what the heck they're talking about, and also share leads for profitable items to look for at pawn shops and video game stores. Just today we had a few people going out to Walmart's because they just did another round of video game hidden clearance. They were posting some of the games that they were finding, and I guarantee people in this Discord are going to be making thousands of dollars in the aggregate on these specific games. So if you do flip video games or you're wanting to do more of that, I'm very convinced that the value prop is there. The value you'll get from it is disproportionate to what it costs every month. The link to that is in the description. In the first couple months, or couple weeks rather, are free if you just want to check it out. But whether it's through my Discord or some other Facebook group, or through going and shaking people's hands at reseller conferences, I highly recommend connecting with other people in the business because it's just not natural to go through your career doing everything on your own. Number 5 misconception is when sourcing is hard, that just means I need to source more. Now, if you're an aspiring reseller, what I mean when I say sourcing is going out to find inventory. And as markets shift and more people come in and out of different niches and maybe places that you're buying from are changing their policies, it can become harder over time to buy the items that you're used to buying and that you want to flip online. This is exactly what happened in the story that I was talking about earlier with Goodwill's, and the books that I used to be able to flip there suddenly seem to be drying up. The remedy to this, I would say, is when sourcing gets hard, you need to source differently. If pawn shops are drying up with video games because of increased competition, or they start selling online or whatever near me, that doesn't mean I need to put more time into going to them and checking back. Oftentimes it might mean that I need to expand into a different niche entirely, or figure out different ways of getting the same inventory through different means. And the best practical way to do this that I've found is expanding your personal connection. Find a way to meet people who have access to excess inventory, excess stuff that they don't want anymore, and then get in their good graces, buy them coffee, buy them donuts, whatever, so that they will sell that stuff to you at a price where you can still make money. I'll give you some examples. You could cozy up to the auctions space within your town. Oftentimes there are multiple auction houses where you can go and bid on stuff. You could get into the storage locker community and go just with a big box of cookies and hand them out to people with your business card. Say, hey, if you've ever got excess leather jackets that you want to sell all in one spot, I'm happy to come and give you a fair price for them. You can hang around for multiple days at closeout sales and see if there's a closeout company that the business happens to be working with that might have access to a whole bunch of stuff that people don't want anymore, that you could pay them a decent price for and take off their hands. If you're more tech savvy, you could DM people in various industries. Maybe you really like to flip lighting and sound equipment, and you can start DMing theater directors who might have closets full of old sound tech that they're looking to get rid of for some extra cash for their newest production. Guys, this comes back again to be creative with how you're sourcing. Don't just do the same things that everyone else is doing. In this competitive business, you have to find a way to get an edge on all the people that are coming into it. This is the internet age. People know about reselling. There are only going to be more competitors coming onto the market. And the biggest advantage I think that the veterans will have over the newbies is the connections that we are able to establish. My way of doing this personally and finding ways of sourcing differently is this YouTube channel. Granted, it's a lot more work than most of those other methods that I just mentioned, but if you've noticed in the last couple of months, most of the deals that I have done that have been the biggest and that have been the most inventory at one spot that will ultimately make me the most money are people that I've been able to meet through this channel. People will reach out to me who are either like other local resellers or collectors that are in the region and say, hey, I've got all this stuff to sell. I know that you buy and I know that you pay fair prices. Do you want to come out and take a look? Now, I can't get too far down this rabbit hole. I could talk for an entire video about trying to, build connections on YouTube. But what I'm trying to say with this point is think about how you can source differently than anyone else and how you can form connections with people who have a lot of stuff, especially when the ways that you are used to sourcing, whether it's thrifts or pawns or yard sales or whatever, aren't panning out as well for you anymore. And finally, the sixth and last point of this video, hopefully you guys aren't tired of me rambling yet, is the misconception of if I just run faster, if I just work harder, I will see results sooner. Now, this is a tricky one because it's actually half true. One of my favorite things about reselling is that it's a business where your ultimate results are directly correlated with how hard you're willing to work. But the point that I want to make is that reselling is inherently a marathon rather than a sprint. Even if I'm finding a way to list 100+ items per day, unless I'm willing to price them all at significantly below market value and they have a really good sell-through rate as a product anyway, I'm not going to be able to force the market into buying those products. Now, if it's a good item and it's priced fair, it will sell eventually, but if you don't want to completely tank your prices, you kind of have to just wait for the market to come to you, for the right buyer to find your item on whatever platform you're selling. For this reason, people who win in reselling disproportionately are the ones who are able to delay gratification. And the reason that I harp on this so much is that I'm convinced it's the single biggest indicator of who will have long-term success in this industry. Being willing to look at your eBay account and say, I listed 30 items yesterday and not one of them has sold. This feels kind of bad. Oh well, I'm confident in my listings. I'm confident that I have bought the right products and priced them well. I'm gonna list another 30 items today and another 30 items the next day and on and on and on until I start to see the daily sales that I want to. That right there is the ultimate reselling superpower. Anyways, folks, that's enough out of me for today. Let me know in the comments which of these misconceptions you're most prone to, which piece of advice you found most helpful. I really appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, I will catch you all on the flip.